Welcome to another Trekporeal Adventures of the 735. This is episode 6, and with me is Brandon, the anime guy. What is up, Brandon? Thanks for joining me on this episode, this pretty sadistic segment of Trekporeal.
Yes, thank you for having me. And all I'm going to say is
O'Brien must suffer.
That's right.
Oh, the poor man. He goes through so much, but yet he always comes out on top and better for it. Mostly, anyways.
Mostly, yeah. Like there were points where he even died. He's died. So I mean, I'll just I'll just leave it at that. Yeah,
Yes.
so we're talking about our top 5 O'Brien Must Suffer episodes today. And I already got my top 5. Brandon, I'm sure you got your top 5. So why don't
Yep.
we kick off the top 5? Kick off number 5.
Well, why don't real quick before we do that, let's do a little criteria. With O'Brien Must Suffer, something bad must happen to him within the episode, and I just from my own count, there's about 11 episodes where he really truly suffers one degree or another, but cutting it down to 5, at least for me, was pretty straightforward and pretty easy.
Yeah, same here.
So let's hit him. What have you got for? Where are we starting with? Which number?
We're starting with number 5. We're starting at the bottom. We're working our way up to our top O'Brien Must Suffer episode.
Sounds good to me. You go right ahead, sir.
No, the honor is yours. You're the guest.
Well, I appreciate that. My number 5 is You Are Cordially Invited. That is the episode from, let's see, was it season 6? Where Worf is getting married. And the reason why I consider this an O'Brien Must Suffer episode is because he does suffer. He goes on the path to Kalhaya with Worf and other friends, Bashir, and of course Alexander, and then of course Captain Sisko. And they suffer immensely on the road to Kalhaya. Extreme heats, extreme challenges, fasting for this whole time frame. It gets to the point where even where he's hanging there, and Bashir says, "I have had a vision. I'm going to kill Worf." And O'Brien's like, Yes, let's kill Worf. Let's do it. We're going to kill him.
I do not remember that. I have to rewatch this one. It's been a while since I've seen this one. I did not even know that this was a O'Brien Must Suffer episode.
Yeah, that's, as I said, that's why when I told you, my list might be a little wonky. Yeah, I really dug deep on some of these. But yeah, even though this is not an O'Brien-centric story, it is an O'Brien Must Suffer episode. So yeah, I always liked this episode. It was a good one. Plus, at the end, they get to when when they're getting married and the Genmar talks there. They're like, no, not yet. No, not quite yet. Now, no! And then they go and club Worf and Dax. It doesn't get much better than that. That's a good one.
All right, so that's your number 5. Okay, I did not include that one in my list. I didn't even think that was a O'Brien Must Suffer. So that's a very good one. Good job. That's a good one. Good job. So my number 5. My number 5 is The Messenger. That's a season 5 episode where Keiko goes to Bajor, comes back, and the moment she reunites with O'Brien, she's like, I'm holding your wife hostage, and if you don't do exactly what I say, I'm gonna kill her. And he's like, what? And she's like, okay, I think I need to demonstrate. Keiko, don't hurt my Keiko. I'm like, how do you know she's just not messing with you? But that's beside the point.
So the Paul Wraith.
Yeah, so the whole point of the episode is, like like for the first half of it, she is just like completely like she is like terrorizing him. Like this is like almost like psychological at this point. Every time he does something, she's always like 1 or 2 steps ahead of him. Like he was about to tell there was a point where he was in the conference with all the other senior staff, and he was about to tell them. And the moment he was about to do it, she calls in and she says, "Oh, your daughter wants to talk to you," and she's holding her daughter, like, basically without saying it, threatening Molly. So,
Holding
and
her
then,
hostage, more or
holding
less.
her hostage, more or less. And then he's like considers going to Odo, and then she just falls off the freaking balcony. She just falls off at the balcony, and luckily she survived. It was ridiculous. And of course, what ultimately happens is she basically tells Miles to basically to fix the chronoton array, or to build a chronoton array, and he doesn't know why he's doing it. And the B plot of this episode is Rom. Rom is part of O'Brien's team. He's the one that works on the waste. He works on the waste management systems, basically, the shit. And he wants to get along with his fellow. He wants to work his way up. So O'Brien has him working on it, helping him work on it. And Rom was the one that figured out that the chronoton particles will kill the prophets, and then he realizes that he realizes that might kill the Pare. So instead of having the chronotons aim at the wormhole when it opens, he has it aimed at the shuttle with Keiko on board, and it kills the Pyrite that's in Keiko. So that was to me, it was number 5, because it was just, I felt like I needed to put it in, and it was just
that one's
it was a weak one. It was a fun one, but it was a weak one at the same time. And of course, nobody likes Keiko anyways. So
no one likes the bitchy wife, and let's face it, there's no wife in Starfleet more bitchy than she is.
Oh no, yeah,
she's awful.
Yeah, she's like the whole time on Deep Space Nine, she's just like, I don't want to be here. I'm going to Bayshore. Screw you all. So that's my number 5, The Messenger.
That's a good one. That is a good one. So let's see.
We got someone in the chat that likes Keiko. Brian's gay. Hey, now I like.
Oh, I don't like her. Yeah. To each their own.
She's tough to like. So
she's tough to keep happy.
Yeah.
She's very short-term happiness type of person.
Exactly. So so let's move on to number 4. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Empok Nor. And the reason that I select this is because O'Brien must suffer the death of all of his team at the hands of the Cardassians. In this episode, they have to fix something on Deep Space Nine that can't be replicated, and because of the war, they just can't go to the Cardassians and say, hey, will you give us one of these? So they find Empok Nor, and what happens on this station is quite gruesome. They had basically a serum injected into some soldiers that was left behind that's in their ventilation system, and it hypes up their xenophobic nature and their killer instinct. And of course, they take Garrick with them to try and subvert all their security systems, and he ends up getting it. And throughout the episode, one by one, all of Chief O'Brien's crew is killed, either by the soldier that gets awoken and is left there, or by Garrick. Now, fortunately, with this one, O'Brien lives, but he does suffer. But at the end of it, even though he suffered, he's been through war before. He, survivor of Setlec 3, all that.
Yeah.
He had this happen during, let's say, the TNG days. He probably wouldn't have been okay. He probably would have been really roasty toasted about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he is able to forgive Garrick once everything is fleshed out as to the why. Because as he knew it, he doesn't know Garrick that well, but he knows that Garrick isn't. While he may have that irrationality, he keeps it. He understands that Garrick has accepted his situation and has become more or less friends with them, and if not a full-on ally, a reluctant ally. But once he is an ally, he is a good one.
Yeah, I agree. This episode was basically like a slasher movie. I mean, everyone that wasn't like a main character got killed. It was pretty tough. So I forgot. I haven't watched this one in a while either. It's been a while since I've watched the series in its entirety. But it wasn't just Garrick that was killing people. There were other Cardassians on board on Parkmore, weren't
Yes, there were 3 sleeper agents that were left that once the main power was restored, it let loose 2 of them. The third one had been killed after basically a beam fell on his hibernation pod. And so there were 2 of them that were out there, but this strain was in the air system. So after being on the station for just a short time, Garrick was starting to feel the effects. And once it fully kicks in on him, he goes full Obsidian Order rage mode.
Oh, okay.
And it takes every bit of cunningness that O'Brien has in order to stop him. So he suffered, but he overcame.
Yeah, that's actually that was another interesting thing. So interesting. Okay. My picks are more typical of your more of your typical O'Brien must suffer. So my number 4 is Tribunal. Tribunal is the one where it's the end of season 2. So this is right before they encounter the Dominion, the Jem'Hadar. O'Brien and Keiko are going on vacation, and O'Brien is getting everybody is getting super duper tired of O'Brien to the point where literally Sisko's like, please go on your vacation already. Get off the station. Do I have to escort you to the docking bay? So when he's on his way to the docking bay, he comes across a guy, an actor. What's funny was a guy with a mustache, an actor who was in the old movie Rollerball. I can't think of his name. He's the one that gets hit in the head. I don't know if you ever seen the original Rollerball, 1975, but he gets hit in the back of the head with spikes. He's the one that got hit in the back of the head with spikes. Same actor. So O'Brien runs into him, recognizes him as someone that he served with, and he's like, yeah, okay. And then that kind of ends. That little interaction ends. They could take the shuttle, or I don't know if it was a shuttle or runabout, whatever. And they get
runabout,
and O'Brien gets arrested by Cardassians that are Cardassian Gullyvec. I think this was before Voyager, because I think that's when Gullyvec gets killed. Gullyvec's the one that was the Gull that was. He was in Journey's End episode where they're trying to remove the Native Americans on that planet. Remember that one, season 17?
Yep, I remember that one.
Same guy, the Gullyvec. So he's the one that arrests O'Brien, and then of course O'Brien is taken to Cardassian Prime. So I think this is the first time we ever see Cardassian Prime. He is literally stripped naked. He is stripped naked in front of everybody, has a flashlight shining on him, gets thrown into a chair naked, and gets his molar taken out. Freaking taken out. He's like,
he gets the Picard treatment.
Yes. And then after that, it becomes more of a procedural where Odo kind of takes the reins, because he's like he's actually a Cardassian. I forgot the title, but he's a Cardassian. He can represent the accused. Or something.
He's a lawyer, more or less, or he's still active in the Cardassian registry as a whatever the term or title that he has, but he can act as an investigator and as O'Brien's a semi-sort of defender on top of the quote-unquote public defender that they give to him.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing about Cardassian judicial system is before they're even arrested, the verdict is already given, and so we all know he's guilty. Everybody knows he's guilty. The thing is, we don't know what he's guilty of. That's the thing that throughout the episode we learn, and they believe that he was working with the Maquis to sabotage something. I forget exactly what it is, and we find out later in the episode that the Maquis the Maquis show up and they reveal that they were not involved. So this was a Cardassian operation that.
Cardassian setup to try and draw out the Maquis at the expense of O'Brien.
Yeah. So the reason why the case gets dismissed ultimately is because they didn't want to make this an intergalactic incident. So that's why they let O'Brien go, because they would
after their person gets caught by Sisko and company.
Yes, so they caught the guy with the mustache, and we reveal that he was a Cardassian the whole time. So kind of like Seska and Voyager, he was basically swapped and replaced. So his original, the guy that O'Brien served with was caught and killed. years ago. So that's why when he came back home, he was different and he left and blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, that's Tribunal. And Tribunal was pretty good. If you like, good, good procedural, good courtroom procedural. I thought that was a very funny episode. I hated that weasel of a defender, that old weasel of a defender that O'Brien had. I just wanted to punch him in the face, like, oh, think of the people, think of the children, making an
he hammed up all the he hammed it up big time. And at the very end, Odo says, "Congratulations, you won."
Yeah. He's like, my life is over, my retirement,
my perfect record is gone.
My perfect record. In that case, losing a case was considered a good thing. The things that they came up with. So yeah, that's my number 4. So number 3.
Number 3. Share my screen with you here. There we go. Number 3 is Visionary.
Hey,
this is the episode where O'Brien dies.
Yeah, this is my number 3 too. Actually, you got.
Well, excellent. Well, that makes it this much simpler.
Yeah.
Let me tell this like how it was in Rapunzel. This is the story of how O'Brien dies. No, wait, it's a good story. You're gonna like this one. Yeah, the station is visited by some Romulans, if I remember correctly, trying to do a pact of some sort. When he starts time shifting. The problem is each time that he goes through one of these time shifts, a few hours ahead and then pops back.
Yeah.
He builds up basically like a remnant of chronotom particles that becomes lethal and poisonous to him. Mm-hmm. So he leaps ahead, basically talks to himself, thinks about things that's going on or ways that he's died several times before and prevents those. But eventually, what happens is the last leap, before he dies, he finds out that the station gets the station explodes, and by the time that he realizes what it is and tells himself what it is, it's the Romulans. They were there cloaked, just waiting to be Romulans about the whole thing, trying to keep the the Dominion from coming through. They blew up the station and closed the wormhole themselves.
Yeah, so that's basically what they wanted to do. It was interesting because this takes place in season 3. So this takes place after the initial encounter with the Dominion. So after the Jemadar, where Quark and Cisco get taken hostage on a planet, and then they get a Galaxy class ship to go into the Gamma Quadrant and try to take on a few warships, and the warships do a kamikaze thing because that's how crazy the Dominion is. And then of course it follows up with the Search parts 1 and 2, where they go in with the Defiant and they all get captured except for Kara and Odo. And that's one of the things that the Romulans were questioning her about, to the point where she just wanted to rip out all her hair, and she's like, that's effing personal. So sometimes you understand where Kara comes from, but sometimes she's a little too how would I say it? She gets a little too angry sometimes. She loses her cool way too often.
That she does. She gets better about it, but during the early years, very hot-headed.
Because they're asking her personal stuff. Because I forget what I have to rewatch Search Part 2, or Search Part 1. But they were talking about personal. They were talking about personal things. I think Odo was trying to say that he liked her in that particular moment, and that's why she got so super pissed off about it. And they're questioning, like, has there anything else been has anything else been known about this? And they question Odo's loyalty, because he's a changeling, and they learned that the changelings are the Dominion themselves. So I liked that it takes place during that time. Everybody's tense. There are Klingons there. They were watching the Romulans. The Klingons placed like a booby trap. They placed like a surveillance thing, and they booby trapped it. So one of the times that O'Brien gets sees himself in the future, he opens like this panel. He opens up this panel, and it just shoots him. He's dead. So how many times has he died? Like, he died in that moment. He died in the future when he sent himself to the future, and he died of like it was like radiation. He died of radiation poisoning.
Radiation poisoning.
He just dropped dead on the thing. And what's funny is he sends his other self, the self from that time, back. So and so he sends his other self back to his time, the original time, and of course they work to avoid everything. And this O'Brien is like, I don't feel right here. I don't feel right here at all. And I know you hate Voyager, but there's a moment in Voyager where Harry Kim dies, and another version of him comes back onto the ship, and he literally the episode ends with like, "This is not really my ship, and you're not really my captain." And they're like, "Well, you're here now, so don't ever talk about it again." Okay, I didn't say that, but that's probably what the writers were thinking. So
yeah, don't think about it too hard. Don't think about it too hard, kids.
So I just couldn't help it. I laughed when I laughed when I saw that again. So that's Visionary was pretty funny. Visionary was pretty cool, and of course you had Quark. You know, you had the bar fight, and you know it was cool. It was cool seeing O'Brien see himself in the future. It was ridiculous, and I loved it. So that's my number 3 as well. So we both have something in common, Brandon. So
yes, we did. That was it was a good episode. Not the best, but it was good.
Yeah. So Brandon, what is your number 2?
Now this one's probably going to be a bit controversial because this is probably your number 1. For a lot of people, it's probably their number 1. Hard Time is my number 2. And in this one, O'Brien suffers 20 years imprisonment within a matter of minutes. And man, oh man, that messes with him so bad. Basically, he gets convicted of some crime on some unknown world for whatever reason. And as soon as he's convicted, they do basically a simulation that they speed up. As I said, he literally in his mind spent 20 years in this prison with this guy.
HR.
Yeah, and all the things that happen on a day-to-day basis. And then after, those few minutes, Cisco finally shows up. They turn it off. He comes back out of it, but he is a changed man. He acts, behaves, feels, and everything like he had actually done those 20 years worth of imprisonment.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, in his mind, he looks pretty grizzled by the time it's all said and done. And this episode, it gets so bad for him. His PTSD regarding this experience gets so bad that he thinks about taking his own life. And as you can see there, he has the phaser to his head, ready to push the button. Fortunately, Dr. Bashir is able to get through to him enough to be able to get him to stop. And that's a funny thing. He's the one that gets through, not Keiko and not what's the kid's name? Molly. You would have thought that Molly and Keiko would have been the ones to get through to him since, their family. But in some respects, Bashir is more important to O'Brien than even they are. So a little different dynamic there. But considering how bad Keiko can be towards him at times, I guess that doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah, it's there's even like the way she acts in my number 2 is how I feel about the character. She's like extremely distant, and she's hard to like. I mean, I know Briansgate likes her. I mean, there are moments where she does come off as very, affectionate, and she smiles.
Yeah, there's
like in that picture, she smiles, doesn't roll her eyes for once.
But that's rare. There's an old saying with regard to Asian women, and if you're an Asian woman listening to this, I apologize, but this is something I heard. You're great to date. You're not fun to be married to. It's just a little something I was told. And with her, when you go back to the TNG era, they don't really do a whole ton of dating between O'Brien and her. It's pretty much they meet, then they're married. But even on the Enterprise, there were some episodes where they just it really made you wonder how or why they would stick together. And I don't believe that in standard times, either in our society or even in their society, I don't think they would have stayed together. That would just be, it's too much. They want too many different things, and they just really don't mesh that well.
No, they don't. I mean, the only thing I remember from TNG was Data's Day. She was in Data's Day where they get married, where Data's the father of the bride. and I think she was also in Power Play, which is the one where Data, Troy, and O'Brien get possessed by these
Yep, she's in
incorporeal
that.
criminals, and she was in that, and they were trying to get her to appeal to him, and it didn't work. So
Well, there's the episode of Molly's Birth where they pass through those filaments in space.
Yeah, Worf was the Worf gave gave the birth. Okay, that was a good one too.
Yeah,
Captain Picard. Yeah, those Captain Picard Day episode, I believe. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, so even before they brought him on the DS9, the dynamic was established, and it's a tough dynamic. So I don't know. He either really must like having fun with her in bed,
yeah,
or he's just that lonely of a guy willing to put up with so much stuff.
well,
I don't know.
He's a chief petty officer. He has to work for a living.
That's true. That is very true. And here's one other thing I do want to mention about O'Brien. In The Next Generation, he wasn't just a chief petty officer. He was an ensign, so he had gone through the academy, and he was a lieutenant there for a while as the transporter chief. But right before the season that TNG ended and DS9 started, he was back to an ensign. Look at his pips. Yeah, it's weird. It makes no sense. Now, I know that with Roddenberry, the way that he wanted things done on TNG is everybody's an officer, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if he was a lieutenant, why would they make that type of continuity problem and bust his balls back down to just being an enlistee, a foot soldier?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess they really wanted an enlistee, and they just, instead of hiring someone new or putting.
Well, that's the thing. They did kind of talk about that in TNG. When in the episode that he goes to rescue or to stop his old captain from restarting a war with the Cardassians. They talk about Setlik 3. They talk about him serving in the war, but that it makes no sense. No sense. And yes, he did outrank Worf at one point. He was a lieutenant, full lieutenant, before Worf was a full lieutenant.
Okay, I have to rewatch and check. So, by the way, everybody, if whoever's listening, just let's put your top 5. I want to hear what your top 5 O'Brien Must Suffer episodes are, if you know what they are. I'd love to see what you guys think. Keep the chat engaged while we're talking. So
yes, so Hard Time was Tough Time.
Hard Time was Tough Time, number 2. You're actually right that I'll get to it, but my number 2 is actually Whispers. So number 2 is Whispers. That's the one. That's season 2. That's the one where it begins with O'Brien is on a runabout. He's being pursued by another runabout, so he's on the run for some reason. And he just basically he recounts the events that led up to it, because that's what a lot of Trek at that time did. Voyager did it quite a bit. DS9 did it quite a bit. He recounts how, like, when he got back from a security, he went on a mission to deal with I think it was the Paratus. The Paratus is the race of people that he was supposed to get security information on, because they were going to have some sort of conference, or they were going to have some sort of thing go on. And the thing was, it was high security. There was the Civil War going on. There were peace talks. Okay, there were peace talks. So there was a big Civil War. So every time, he's like, I have to work. He came back. He's like, I have to work on the security for this. And every time he wants to do it, Cisco and everybody else is already beating him to it, or is having him, or has him work on something else. He's like, what's going on? Why are people not being frank with me on this? And then the first thing he notices is that Keiko and his daughter are already awake at 5:30. By the time he wakes up, they're already eating breakfast without him. And he's like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Because we felt like it, and they just act very distant and cold. I think Molly's like, go away. The little 3-year-old's like, go away, daddy, or no, go away, you. So
yeah, very weird.
Yeah, and I loved how did this go? So so yeah, he wakes up, he goes to begin his day, and his staff already, one of the guys under him is already working on a thing that he was planning on working on, the security detail for the security issues, or the security arrangements for the Paradas. And the tech basically tells him that, oh, Captain Sisko ordered me to do this. So okay, so Captain Sisko's kind of acting a little weird too. This is strange. So
yeah, they all act strange. He goes to Odo saying, Odo, this, I've noticed this, that, and the other, and nobody told Odo what was going on, so he's like, very peculiar.
Because that's because he wasn't on board. So this is like 3/4 into the episode. So he had no idea what was going on. Odo took some concern because he didn't know. But then when he talked to senior staff, then he started acting weird too. Ooh, what's going on? Maybe did he get possessed? Maybe those creatures from Conspiracy came back. Remember those creatures from Conspiracy?
Yes, I do remember.
Maybe they're after O'Brien, or maybe O'Brien is the only one that could save the galaxy from them. No, that's not the case. So everything. So like people have just been avoiding him. Like Jake Sisko went up to him. Or how would I say it? So Jake Sisko went up to him and says, "Hey, I need your help building a transceiver for my science project." And Miles is like, or O'Brien's like, "Okay, yeah, just come by tonight after we're done with dinner, and I'll help you." And then, of course, right after that, we find out Sisko called and said, "Oh, Jake is sick." He's like, "He wasn't sick when Jake wasn't sick when I talked to him." And then another thing was during when O'Brien confronted Sisko about his tech doing that, he basically apologized and said, "Oh, or he apologized," and he asked O'Brien asked why Sisko was, because O'Brien witnessed Sisko talking to Keiko in the distance on the promenade. And Sisko's reasoning was, I was talking about Jake. We're talking about his grades. His grades are suffering. And then when Jake asks him about his science project, he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you. You get your grades up." And he's like, "Oh, my grades are fine." So, there's something wrong. So ultimately, Miles makes a break for it. He steals a shuttle and he gets onto the runabout, and he goes back to the planet. I forget exactly what. He goes back to the planet that the Paradas are from or something. And we find out that the Miles that we were following this whole episode wasn't him. He was a replicant. He was a sleeper agent replicant replacement android thingy. And he dies. He dies in this episode. He gets shot and he dies. And then we see another O'Brien get up, and that's the real O'Brien, the one that was abducted and replicated or something. So it was like, was that a clone? Was that a clone? Was that an android? What was it?
It was a weird episode.
It was a very weird episode, and it was a lot of fun. So that's my number 2. Whispers is my number 2. So, now we're on to, hey, once again, chat. Let us know what your top 5 O'Brien Must Suffer episodes are. I haven't seen anything yet. Put it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. Impress me. I want to get
very much
engaged
so.
too. So, all right. So next up is special mentions. And Brandon, what are your special mentions?
Well, for me, my special mention was Tribunal. It's it's an okay episode. It definitely is a more of a past the O'Brien Must Suffer to O'Brien Must Be Tortured, but it's a serviceable episode and that. But a few others that are O'Brien Must Suffer episodes that you may not necessarily think about. Honor Amongst Thieves is one, because he gets Donnie Brasco'd.
Is that basically okay? I was trying to remember what movie it was. That what gangster, what neo noir movie? Yeah,
Donnie Brasco.
I wasn't sure if it was that or Carlito's Way.
Yeah, it's in that same vein, but he basically gets hung out to dry. Which if you're in this world, don't work for any clandestine group, because you'll always be hung out to dry.
Yes.
Let's see. Trials and Tribulations is an O'Brien Must Suffer, because he suffers the wrath of Captain Kirk for the bar fight on Space Station K9.
Hey, hey, crewman, who started the fight? I don't know, sir.
I don't know,
I
sir.
don't know, sir. Well, at least he's not Scotty, because if you insult the Enterprise in front of Scotty, saying it should be hauled away as garbage, you get punched. Get punched in the
Yeah.
face. Get
Scotty
right in the
loses
face.
he loses his shit over that, that's for sure.
So you hit the Klingons, not because they insulted me, but because they insult. Well, sir, this was a matter of pride.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
my
I love
other
that
honorable
episode.
Yeah, that's a great episode. And that was a really good tech demo and demonstration of how you can take something old, integrate it into something new, and also update the graphics with CGI. It still holds up very well today. It is an excellent episode.
Yeah, that happened because they found, I think it was, I don't know if it was Ira Burr, but Ira Burr ran into Charlie Brill, the guy that plays Arn Darvin from Trouble with Tribbles. They ran into him, and that's kind of, I think that's kind of where they got the inspiration to do an episode. Like, they had a friendly chat, and they're like, maybe we should do an episode. Maybe let's revisit the Trouble with Tribbles. It was the most popular TOS episode. And what's funny is Trials and Tribulations is considered to be, I know a lot of people would disagree
It's
with
right
me,
up
but
there.
I remember it was considered the most popular episode of DS9 according to one Star Trek special that was on in the 90s or early 2000s. So it was only the 4 shows. Voyagers was Scorpion, DS9 was Trials and Tribulations, TNG was Best of Both Worlds, and I believe TOS was Trouble with Tribbles. And of course,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can guess which one of those 4 won. Best of Both Worlds. Best of Both Worlds won.
Yeah. Well, at the time that would have been right, but time has not been good to TNG. Let's just put it that way. Whereas time has been good to DS9. But one last honorable mention is Armageddon game. Being betrayed by a planet and almost dying from a disease that you were there to dispose of, in which case they turn around and try to dispose of you because they have super duper fear of this knowledge getting out again.
That's right. That's actually both that one is actually in my Armageddon's game, and what was the other one? And Honor Among Thieves are in my special honorable mentions too. So Armageddon's game is freaking, I liked it. I mean, I didn't think it was enough of a, I mean, O'Brien does suffer. He gets like the drop of the, so
he starts dying from that disease. Yeah.
So there's this biogenic weapon that these 2 species want to dispose of. Like, they want to go to peace. They want to move forward. They want to move forward progressively and get rid of all these weapons all these weapons of mass destruction. That sounds noble enough. So Bashir and O'Brien are there helping them come up with these solutions. And the thing is, they know the virus pretty well. Well, at least I know Bashir does. I'm not sure about O'Brien, but they decide to have them killed anyway. So what happens is they so they're everybody's happy. They're successful. They're about to get rid of the final batch of stuff, when all of a sudden the one race, I think, what's the race? One of the races comes in and starts attacking, killing all the scientists. And of course Bashir and O'Brien survive, dispatch all those guys and leave. They beam down. They beam down to a world that was pretty much destroyed. Like, there's like nothing left. It's like a freaking ghost town. Like, there's nothing left.
I will say this: the only reason why they got off that planet is because Keiko thought that she saw something in the video where he doesn't typically have coffee at a certain time of day.
I know.
And then it turns out he does.
He does, and she's like, "What?" I laughed when I saw that too. That was a great way to end the episode. But yeah, like they would have died if Cisco and who else was there? Dax, Cisco and Dax weren't at the weren't there with the runabout. So and of course they questioned it because the thing that happens is we originally thought it was just one side that was wanted to keep the weapon for themselves. The big twist was that both sides actually wanted to kill everyone involved. So they still wanted to dispose of the weapon and all the items, all the literature that came with making the weapon, but they wanted to get rid of all the people too, so that there'd be no possibility of replicating this in the future. But what they did was the race that the ambassadors go to Cisco and they say, "Oh, we're sorry, Bashir and O'Brien have died. There was an explosion in the lab with obviously a doctored recording." And it was it was Keiko that saw that he was drinking coffee, and it's like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
Miles doesn't do that. And what's funny was it did happen, but they still found out that it was still manipulated anyway. So it was one of those tweaks or freaks of one of those coincidental things that really made it fun. So that so I love that one too. So
yeah. And one last honorable mention that it is, but it's more of a heart wrenching, gut wrenching twist, and it's Children of Time. The temporal accident.
Would you consider
yes,
that,
and here's why. It ends up all being on him whether they decide to stay or go. And originally he was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." So in this case, everyone else would suffer because of O'Brien. Hence, O'Brien must suffer because of that. And but he eventually comes around. He agrees to the plan, but of course we know how Odo feels about it, and the timeline gets restored, and that a particular group of people no longer exists. So I do consider that an offshoot to O'Brien Must Suffer. It's not a traditional one, but I think it fits that bill too.
I think that that was I haven't watched it. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I remember it was a very
heart-wrenching
idea. It's a heart-wrenching. It was a very interesting idea in science fiction. Just like imagine, I mean, there's because Star Trek is known for time travel. Imagine meeting your descendants, and then imagine meeting your descendants, but in order for them, and this is kind of like a follow-up to Sitting on the Edge of Forever from TOS, where you have to, in order for you to continue as you are, you have to make sacrifices. You have to make choices and decisions that might not make you happy. Like they had to let Edith Keeler die they had to let her get run over by a truck. And it's a similar idea. They have to decide whether, if they want to continue to live their lives, they'd have to sacrifice these descendants that they just met. And it's like a continuation of that idea, in my opinion. I want to rewatch that episode.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's one that excuse me. It's one that could be watched 2 times in a row, and both times you'll notice things, and it's a great episode. It is one of my favorite, especially from that season. But now on to the
number 1,
the piece au résistance.
Okay, what's your number 1, Brandon?
Destiny.
Which one is
yes Destiny? Here is the plot of this. Here's Destiny, the 61st episode of DS9, the 15th episode of the 3rd season. A team of Cardassian scientists arrive at Deep Space Nine to help build a relay that will allow communication through the wormhole. A Bajoran priest, Vedic Yarka, tells the station's commander, Ben Sisko, that an ancient prophecy predicts that this project will destroy the wormhole. 3 Vipers, the Cardassians, will cause the temple gates, the wormhole, to be cast open and burned. Yarka is treated with skepticism, especially when it is learned that only 2 scientists, Ulani and Gilora, are expected, not 3. When they arrive, however, they explain that a 3rd scientist will soon arrive. That 3rd scientist eventually turns out to be an Obsidian Order agent. But with this, once the 3rd one shows up, Kira starts giving credence to it and starts asking Sisko to stop thinking more or less like a Starfleet officer and more like the emissary. Now, the reason that I say that O'Brien must suffer is because he has to work with these Cardassian engineers and scientists. As they put it in the episode, the women of Cardassia they don't do the military aspect of things. They're more of the science, more of the art side of things, especially since Cardassia has been militarized for so long. But if you remember, he gets hit on by the one on the right. and it causes him massive embarrassment. So the reason I say that he must suffer is because A, he's married, B, he's being hit on by this woman, C, from a race that he traditionally has extremely despised, not only despised, but pure hatred towards. And all of this while being married, but having his issues with Keiko. You can kind of see it in his eyes like, well, maybe she would be good as a wife because she's, as she puts it, she's fertile and all that fun stuff. So with this one, he suffers from massive embarrassment, but he also, in his suffering, he learns that not all Cardassians are truly bad. There are those that do want to advance things and, basically be part of this, be part of the intergalactic community to make it to where they can improve the lives of everyone. Cardassians, Bajorans, the Federation, everyone, by having that relay, making it to where the wormhole can be opened just enough to allow that signal to go through. That may be the B, his story may be the B plot of the story, but that's the part of the story that's the funniest. Okay. So O'Brien must suffer with embarrassment and with being hit upon by a spoonhead.
O'Brien, O'Brien is, once again, O'Brien is the everyman, and usually everyman, are usually more prone to this 5-letter word that begins with a B and ends with igot, So, but in this case, I mean, O'Brien,
he kind of started off that way.
I mean, O'Brien fought a war, was part of a war against the Cardassians, so he's got
a bad war.
Yeah. So, which I have to read up on. I don't know. I have to see if there's more information on that war on Celtic 3 and everything.
No, they keep talking about it, so it has to be bad. But he, as I said, he overcomes all that. He works with them, and he grows to respect this woman when she pours her heart out because she thinks, I don't know what she was thinking. She must have been in some sort of Cardassian heat or something. Was like, hey, baby, I'm fertile.
Yeah.
I can give you children. Do you want to have children with me?
I actually liked. I remember that. I liked that one. That was a pretty good one too. I'll be honest. I'm rewatching these episodes out of order, and I find so much pleasure. In watching these. I kind of wonder, like, with all the new stuff coming out, the new Star Trek the new Trek coming out, I'm wondering if I've just lost interest in Star Trek in general. And I've been rewatching like TOS, TNG, DS9, even Voyager, and I still really enjoy those.
Yeah,
I know not everyone likes Voyager, but I still really enjoy Voyager. And
well, I've gone through the first season of Voyager. I have done that, but there's just something about it that doesn't quite work, didn't quite fit with me, but that's just me. But when you talk about, have we, as traditional Star Trek fans who either grew up with the original, grew up with Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, have we lost it or have they lost it? I'm completely 100% convinced they've lost it. We have not. And it's because we can go back and watch these. I've been through TNG completely once, if not twice, several episodes, double-digit figures because of reruns on TV and things like that. But I can say, out of all of them, DS9 is the only one that I'll slog through every single episode without too much question or hesitation, because it is that good, and it holds up way better than TNG has, especially with what they did with Pucard. Holy crap. I've tried to watch season 7. I can't do it. Even though when I actually counted how many episodes, for the episodes, there's 3 branches. Either toss them out the airlock, a one and done, or can watch over and over again. There are actually about 7 to 8 episodes in that 7th season that are really good. They really are. But the toss out the airlock number is higher than most of the other seasons, and the one and dones is also a little higher than the previous seasons. And those episodes that are bad, they're really bad. So
your favorite episode from that season was Sub Rosa, where her Beverly's grandmother's boyfriend's
that's just nasty.
Screw is doing all these sensual things to her. It's just weird. Who came up with freaking Jerry Taylor? Jerry Taylor was the one running season 7, so that's kind of why you see the dip in quality.
Yep, there was a massive dip in the quality overall. But just on the quick TNG, I liked Inheritance, Parallels, the Pegasus. Yeah, Lower Decks is pretty good.
Oh yeah, Lower Decks is great.
And then you get to Firstborn, and I see what they were doing with that. You get to that end, Preemptive Strike, and All Good Things. But the rest of them are either one and dones or they're not worth it at all. And that's too high of a number for me. Whereas with DS9, even with season 1, it's about a half and half. I can stomach the half the episodes pretty well. The other half are closer to one and dones, and maybe only 2 to 3 of them are toss them out the airlock.
Did you like the episode with Worf's brother? Paul Sorvino plays Worf's brother.
Oh, not really. And here's why. This
is where they had to relocate the people from one planet to another. So they had to beam them aboard the holodeck, and then they had to transport them while they were sleeping.
Yeah, his brother Nikolai doing all that for him. Mm-hmm. The premise is good. Execution's terrible. Making Worf look like anything other than a Klingon. It's hard. It's just hard to see Michael Dorn without the Klingon makeup. It really is.
Yeah, I was like, wait, is that him? It is him. So another episode that I'm sure New Trek will try to take advantage of. Remember Journey's End, where Wesley becomes like he joins the Traveler, and it's one of the Cardassians want to relocate the Native Americans. I was just like, wow, that is right. Yeah,
you don't get too
that really hits you on the nose.
That's a CW type episode. It was not a good episode. I like the natives; they're all cool, but Wesley, it's Wesley. Toss him out the airlock once and for all. 7.
I think that was his only appearance. Well, obviously, it was his last appearance in TNG, and we see him once more. And we freaking see him, and we see him in Nemesis, and I think in the deleted scene. But we see him in
Picard
season 2. So the Travelers are all connected to Gary Seven's people from Assignment Earth. I'm just like, okay, whatever. I haven't here, but the thing is, I know about this, but I haven't watched the show, so I can't really make any judgments. But people actually did not like season 2. People that usually like the new Trek did not like season 2 of Picard somehow.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I will say this. Strange New Worlds is a step in the right direction. But I still don't find it nearly as good as like the Orville or any of the old Trek. So I'm not going to do any reviews anymore. I'm not sure if I might still watch them. I'm not sure if I want to. The last episode was trying to be Geloja, the episode Spock Amok, where it's literally like Spock gets a brain, literally switch bodies. They do a weird mind meld Vulcan ritual, and they switch bodies. And so they both have different tasks that they have to do, and it's supposed to be, they're trying to be funny. Like another channel, I forget his name, the one guy who's the previous TV executive, he called it the Love Boat in space. Basically, and that's basically what it was. It was like storytelling, but heck, even an Aaron Spelling production is written better than that. Heck, so but. I was trying to be Geloja, and I mean, there were points where it was okay, like the characters were okay, but I just didn't find it. I wasn't nearly as invested. I didn't like him nearly as much as I like him in the Orville. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But I think Stranger Worlds is going in the better direction. It's not up there with the Orville yet. If it gets there, I'll be surprised. If it gets there, I don't think the Goldsman, I'll be surprised. But if
I don't think they won't catch the Orville. They just don't have the talent. So
yeah.
What is your number one? Or I think I know what it is, but
if you saw my thumbnail, you know what my number one is.
Yep. O'Brien must suffer.
It's hard time. So yeah, I really thought that episode really, I think so part of my gauge, part of how I gauged or ranked him was like how in terms of how much O'Brien suffered. Now he dies, but I think what O'Brien suffers in this episode is a fate worse than death. and with being, they say cycles, but he was basically, he was in prison for 20 years. They barely fed him. They barely feed him, and he had a cellmate, Echar, and him and Echar would basically take the food that was given, that was thrown into there, because they were basically, it was solitary confinement, but with just another, but with a cellmate. So they take the food and they save it, and they try to eat as very little as they can so that they can save it for weeks and weeks and weeks. What was messed up was, it was, I don't know if the HR cellmate was created by the program to make O'Brien lose his humanity, because the moment he did, so I don't think he was sentenced to 20 years. They were just waiting for him to do something that would make him lose his humanity, and then they would let him go. So the moment he kills Echar in his state is when they start giving him food, and then they release him from his sentence, from his death to society. That's what I think they did. And what happened was, he saw that like they were hiding food, and he saw that Echar was hiding food from him. So they were starving. They didn't eat for like a week, and it got to the point where O'Brien just went nuts, and he started punching him. He got him to a headlock, and he accidentally twisted his neck and killed him. And that's throughout that episode was him recounting what led up to that. And it was a powerful episode. It was very, I would say, it led to the point where he wanted to commit suicide. He started acting up on the station. He gets angry at Bashir. So Bashir's like, hey, you're not attending you're required to attend therapy, or you're required to attend counseling 3 times a week, and you haven't been showing up. Why haven't you? Of course, O'Brien then snaps on. He's like, I don't want to go to your freaking, I don't want to be a counselor. I don't want to be this, because he's O'Brien. He's pig-headed like that. And then, of course, Cisco steps in. Okay, so Bashir actually talks to Cisco. This actually concerns him a lot. And Cisco's like, you're going to go see him today. You're going to go to counseling today. And then another incident happens where O'Brien wants Synthale at Quark's bar. And Quark is super busy. He's like, I'm sorry, Chief. Please wait a moment. I'm helping other customers. And he's like, that's, I've worked for food. I've worked for food departments before, and I know exactly how it is. It gets super busy when there's a lot of people. If you work at a bar, you know how it is. And what does and O'Brien gets super duper freaking impatient, to the point where he just grabs Quark's arm and starts twisting it, and he starts, in other words, he assaulted Quark. Now, I mean, not the people, majority of the cast in the show don't like Quark, but still, we like Quark enough that, oh, this is not right, dude. What are you doing? What are you doing? And then where the straw that breaks the camel's back is when he starts to get violent, to the point where his daughter Molly wants attention. And he's like, get away. And then he scares her, and he scares Keiko. And it gets to the point where he realizes that he went too far. And that's when he goes to the cargo bay, and he takes the phaser out of the case, and points it at him. And that's when Bashir stops him. And Bashir gets him to, that was basically his counseling session. He got him to figure this out. Throughout the episode, he's being haunted by Echar. He sees visions of Echar everywhere he goes. And Echar's like, the only reason why I'm here is because there's something, reason why I'm here is because you have guilt. You still have guilt, and you haven't let go of it. You don't know how to let go of it. So when he reveals all this to Bashir, that's when Echar is able to blow away, or go away.
He's able to forgive himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's able to finally move on from what was done to him, and try to put his life back together. And ultimately, he's successful. But I wouldn't be surprised if he still has little flare-ups here and there about it. So
yeah, so this doesn't magically cure him. Like, he has to live with this. Like, they've been trying to see if they've been looking into ways, if there's ways that they can erase that portion of his memory. And they're like, nope. If you're going to erase that, if you're going to erase his memory, you got to erase it all. And I was like, okay, you can't do that. So I forget what they give him. They give him something to help him, but he ultimately has to live. He has to adapt. He has to adapt to this. So
Yep.
it's pretty tough. So yeah. But yeah, that's my number one. That's my number one. Okay, so
You doing okay there? What?
no, someone came home and is screaming. So I
Oh,
my mind. It's one of those awkward. It's one of those awkward things. So
I see. I understand.
but we're
Yeah.
practically it's already an hour, so I'm already did my number one. We're done. We got this. We nipped this in the bud in an hour. So
Yes. Great list overall, and yes, O'Brien Must Suffer. They are some of the better episodes, and even when you think an episode isn't an O'Brien Must Suffer, it is an O'Brien Must Suffer.
yeah. Yeah, and I just like when because I first saw Deep Space Nine when I was in college. So that's when I watched episode here and there when I started watching. I first watched Voyager at the end of season 3. So that was when season 5 of DS9 was on. So I saw the episode Call to Arms years before I saw anything else. So I had no idea what was going on, but there was a battle, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And so I saw that, and then I saw parts of season 7 when Voyager was in its 5th season. And so I watched a little bit of the Dominion War arc, and I was like, you know what, I kind of want to watch this whole show, but there was no way to watch it because it was only on channel and WGN in Chicago, and it was never on when you wanted to when you wanted it to be on. It had to work around all the Cubs games. So when it came on DVD, I finally able to watch it from the beginning, and I loved it. And I was surprised of all the O'Brien episodes. Pretty bad shit is happening to him. So I thought, you know what, this is a great. I thought this was a funny trope. I like the consistency. That's one of the things I love about old Trek is the consistency, not only with other shows but with the characters. And that's why that's why I'm still a fan of this franchise to this day. I mean, I wish the new stuff would try to adhere more, but that's my if you like new Trek, don't hold anything against you. It's just different opinion and different taste, comfort taste, I guess. That's me. So I love Deep Space Nine. It's probably my second favorite after TOS.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine is my favorite, but TOS, I've got 2 captains, Sisko and Kirk. They are my captains. They're a lot alike, and yet they're so different. Yeah. But you combine the 2 together, you have the perfect captain. But I do identify quite a bit with Sisko and the struggles that he faces being both the commander of the station, eventually captain of the station and the Defiant, but also then having that calling, that spiritual calling that he didn't want, but he eventually takes up and becomes. Yeah. He becomes the emissary, and he becomes everything that the Bajorans need.
Yes.
So
I totally agree. And I think this is a great place to end the stream. So
yes, thank you for having me.
So yeah, once again, I loved having the stream. I have to figure out what's next for Trekporeal. I haven't even planned that far ahead yet. I know who my guest, I know who my double secret guest is going to be, but I have to figure out what we're going to talk about. I usually, once again, Trekporeal. If you want to be on Trekporeal, just let me know. I try to match the topic to whatever the guest is really interested in, and then I try to adapt to that and come up with my own things. So I know you said you like Deep Space Nine. My buddy Gary, we did the Garrick episodes, and I was like, what else do you want? And you said, well, let's do O'Brien Must Suffer. I was like, done. Let's do that. So
yep, Garrick is a great character.
Yes, he is. I got into so many like what the last Trekporeal I did was basically conversations that me and him had like for years. So we finally got to transcribe it onto YouTube for other fans to see. So I thought it was pretty cool. So all right then, everybody, thank you so much for joining. If you can stick around, leave a comment saying what your top 5 O'Brien Must Suffer episodes are, if you know them, because I still didn't see any in the chat. So come on, don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint the Admiral, because the Admiral has ways. I don't know what that means, but still. All right. Other than that, everybody have a good night. Live long and prosper. May the wings of Nerdporeals carry you. to the next Orville stream, which is going to be Wednesday at midnight.
Can't wait for that. That'll be good.
Other than that, everybody, have a good night.
Take care, everybody.